gonna get this out of the way right at the beginning. I feel like I can be honest with you. This was supposed to be an easy video. I get lazy sometimes, and this was supposed to be a stupid and really quick idea just so I could put something in for the upload schedule. And I mean truly, what could be dumber than this? This was only supposed to be 6 or 7 minutes of me making fun of emojis that I found online. Cat crying with tears of joy. Now isn't that comical? I was hoping to make this entire thing from start to finish within 1 or 2 days. Yeah, it became so much more than that. I have spent the last 2 weeks researching internet history and encoding standards and Japanese pop culture and ancient Greek writing practices and the complexity of linguistics in the 4 developer subcategories of phone makers and the depths of human emotion itself. And for what? For this? I'm a bit of a broken man, I can admit that. This is such a dumb topic for which I have wasted dozens of hours of my life that I will never get back. With that being said, we have so much to talk about. Real-life, in-person communication is a complicated thing. There are classes and entire degrees on the subject. I assume. I don't really know what a communications major does, but I'm assuming that's what it is, right? If not, I have so many other questions, and there are so many factors to it that we maybe don't always give thought to. Sure, there is verbal communication, but the words we're saying are really only one piece of a bigger puzzle. Your body language, tone of voice, gestures, twitches, volumes, eye contact, these are all forms of nonverbal communication that, along with the spoken word, tell a story. For example, consider the following phrase. What does that mean? While I'm sure you understand the meaning of the words, understanding the emotions behind them, that could be more difficult because this could mean anything. No way! No way. No way. The nonverbal cues are a fundamental part of day-to-day communication. They're a part of our recipe, so you take some of those key ingredients out, and you're not getting the same result. So you take away the rich ingredients of communication, and you're left with no way. No way. No way. That is not the same thing. Plain text may convey messages, but it may not properly communicate the thoughts behind them. Written text has a long history of trying to be understood beyond the words written. In ancient Greek, this is what written text often looked like. It looked regal, elegant, the thinking man's literature. No, it was a pretentious jumble of words that made no sense. Now, none of us speak ancient Greek, so we probably don't think about it, but have you noticed how there's no punctuation? Or spaces? Or lowercase anywhere here? Scriptio continua is a style of writing that thinks that it's too good for any of those things, and it was very common among the ancient Greeks and Romans. The modern English equivalent being something along the lines of from this to this. It's a lot less readable, right? That wasn't until about the 3rd century when Greek librarian and scholar Aristophanes decided that's dumb and invented the first form of rudimentary punctuation. Punctuation allows the spoken word to be understood in silence. Instead of just assuming where one idea stops and the next starts, the author just tells you. And while this undeniably helped with the clarity of the message, what did it do to convey the emotion behind it? From my point of view, besides the exclamation point and skillful use of the question mark, it would seem that formal punctuation only serves to explain the what of what was said, not the how or why of what was said. That isn't to say there were no attempts at such ideas. Punctuation like the percontation mark, the snark, and the interrobang, all of which are funny words to say, were all attempts at better conveying emotions through punctuation, but they never really caught on mainstream. So with that, we're right back at where we started. What does this mean? Now, this was the exact issue back in 1982 at Carnegie Mellon, where on a student-teacher forum, joke messages were getting lost in translation with serious messages. People just couldn't tell the difference because, again, plain text, I don't know what this means exactly. That wasn't until computer scientist Scott Fahlman proposed a simple solution to solve the problem. He was able to change the course of digital communication with 3 simple keystrokes. Huh. No way. Yes, while Fahlman believed that this comical proposal would be short-lived, within a year, it had gone global. Emoticons had taken off, and it's not entirely difficult to see why. For one thing, they worked. Plain text now had character and individuality. I mean, really, who of us hasn't used :P, less than sign : open parentheses, and of course, XD? I haven't. Because I wasn't born in the 80s. Nobody does that anymore. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I grew up watching Disney XD, and I did not understand the joke until much later in my life. Emoticons are boring and lame in the eyes of the modern person. I need something that's far more expressive, something that's really gonna show exactly how I'm feeling, exactly the way I'm feeling it. What is one to do in such a predicament? The only thing we can do in such situations, we turn to the Japanese. The idea of the emoticon had already been adopted and expounded upon by the Japanese advent of the cow emoji, which is like an emoticon for people who really want to prove to you that they're better than you at emoticons. And it was these humble symbols that set the stage for the next era of visual communication in the digital world. Yay! We're at the point where we're talking about the whole point of this video. Woo! The word emoji came into use around the late 90s. And as you can probably assume, seeing how emoji and emotion are so close to each other in name, and that emojis are used to convey emotions, it's pretty obvious that the word emoji has almost nothing to do with the word for emotion. No, actually, the word emoji comes from two different Japanese words, which I am sure I'm about to mess up the pronunciation of. Meaning picture, and moji, meaning character. Now, the creation of the emoji is generally credited to Shigetaka Kurita in 1999 for use under the Japanese mobile character NTT Docomo. There is no way I pronounced any of that right, but we will continue. They were 176 12 by 12 pixel images that were meant to enhance communication. Fun fact, you can go see the original 176 in a permanent installation at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And looking at it, I don't know how to confirm this information, but I don't see any people emoji. There's no faces? Really? You have 5 for different phases of the moon. No laughing emoji. That's weird. Emoji grew in popularity, and soon different companies were coming up with their own different emoji sets. By the late 2000s, it had become abundantly clear that emoji was no passing fad. It was a part of digital communication, and it needed to be standardized. Why? Quick question, this is going to sound dumb, but how does your computer know what A is? Why is it that no matter what phone, iPad, computer, or anything else that you use or send something to, a 7 always shows up as a 7, an @ symbol always shows up as an @ symbol, or the Chinese character for cat always shows up as itself? That Chinese character being pronounced as... There's no way it's pronounced like that. Are you serious? How do they all come up the same so consistently? Unicode, baby! Founded in January of 1991, Unicode serves as an international standard for characters on computers. No matter where you go, this will always show up as that. So really, your computer doesn't know what A is, it knows the hexadecimal code U plus 0041, which it uses to interpret as A. Every character you see on a computer has one, and as emojis increased in popularity over time, it became abundantly clear that they too would need an international standard. And so after receiving proposals from both Apple and Google, Unicode finally agreed to standardize emojis for computers the world over. And now every emoji in use has a code that can be recognized by computers everywhere. And Unicode has a list of those codes publicly for anybody to see on the internet. A list of codes that anybody can look up at any time for video research for any topic, no matter how useless or dumb or waste of time it might be. Face with theme from nodes, U plus 1F624. Index pointing at the viewer, U plus 1F-AF5. Red apple, U plus 1F34E, not to be confused with green apple, which is U plus 1F34F. To answer your question, I haven't been sleeping well the past few days. Why do you ask? Also, did you know you can just like make your own emoji? Did you know that? And no, I'm not talking about Apple's like new AI prompt-based, you come up with your own emoji for iOS 18. No, that's cheating. We're not talking about that. I mean, you can like tell Unicode you have an idea for an emoji and they will accept it, and then like they'll make a code for it, and then every phone will have it. Like you can do that. Like your idea, and then it will be in the emoji keyboard the next time like Apple or Samsung updates their software. The only thing about that is that you have to write like a 10-page paper, and the process takes about 2 years. Surely no one is that dumb and patient so as to commit to the bit so hard for a video, and essentially what will only be a short snippet of a much longer video, and it would not be a good use of time, and it would be very dumb, and no one in their right mind should do that. is what I would have done if the official submission window for the year hadn't closed about a month ago. But just as well. I mean, it's not like I could come up with an original emoji idea. They've all been made. There's no way I could think of one that was funny and relatable and that hasn't been made before, and it could be very useful in very specific circumstances. There's no way I could think of one. An empty wallet emoji with flies coming out of it. That's the idea. Picture the scene. I'm about to go over to a friend's house and the group chat suggests that we get some food. Somebody in said group chat asks if we all want to pitch in for pizza. I took a quick look at my bank account. I said, huh, interesting. I needed a lighthearted way to tell them all that I'm too broke and I'll simply starve. I looked, there was no emoji for that, boom, empty wallet emoji. If this video gets 100,000 likes, I will write the 10-page proposal and I will submit it next year and it'll be in your phones by the year 2028. But emojis are far more than fun and cute pictures. They're a means for communication. Casper Grathwohl, is that how you say that name? President of Oxford Dictionaries is quoted as saying, "Emojis are becoming an increasingly rich form of communication, one that transcends linguistic borders." In researching this video, I came across this old McDonald's ad wherein the whole thing is just emoji people? That's what you'd call them, right? I mean, what else would, yeah, that's it, emoji people. There's no talking in the ad, no nothing, it's just emojis, and it should be weird, but they convey emotions, and it tells a story, and it's kind of cute. I give it, it's a solid 7 out of 10 ad. And it was only at the end of the ad that I realized it was in French. And frankly, if it weren't for that last 2 seconds, I would have never known that. Because language, yeah, that has barriers, but everybody can understand emotions. So, I did too. And emoji's limits as a language in and of itself has definitely been tested. There is a book called Book from the Ground that is entirely told through the use of icons and pictograms, and it is surprisingly readable. The crying laughing emoji was somehow Oxford Dictionary's 2015 word of the year. And for a brief moment, there was a social media platform that was entirely emoji. No words, you couldn't type in any language except emoji, even your username had to be in emojis. It was made by a dude named Matt Gary and Tom Scott. Yeah, that Tom Scott. I would also argue that the use of emojis is very good for developing relationships. A bit of a stretch? Possibly, but hear me out. What are relationships if not a constant stream of emotions? One's emotional involvement is exactly what separates companions from colleagues. You tend to get more emotionally involved with people you choose to keep in your life, as opposed to the people who just so happen to be in your life. And with that being said, who do you find yourself using emojis with more? Your boss? Or your wife? And there you go, that settles it. If you want to have more lasting interpersonal relationships in your life, you have to use more emojis. It's the only way. Causation versus correlation, I'm not familiar with those terms. In the book, The Encyclopedia of the Sciences of Learning, it says in part, studies have demonstrated that mimicry is a communication tool used to create and regulate social interactions and show others that you understand them. It can truly be called social glue, which helps to create strong ties and relationships between individuals. It's common that in social interactions we try and copy and imitate some of the mannerisms and quirks of the people we're talking to. I believe the scientific term is match the vibe. I thought that would be funny in my head, I apologize. Sometimes it's a conscious thing, but a lot of the times it isn't. Like, think, do your friends have mannerisms that you have caught yourself, like, doing even when they're not there? For example, a friend of mine started doing this thing, I don't know if it's recent, but I started noticing it recently. When she disapproves of something, she goes, wait, hold on, you ready? And I just think that's really funny. Whether it's a tone of voice, a catchphrase, or a gesture, we oftentimes copy what our friends do and they copy our mannerisms as well. I've seen it called the chameleon effect in some places, and it's not a thing of trying to steal your thing. It's really quite the opposite. It's like a whole imitation is the most sincere form of flattery type of thing. A lot of people would consider it a sign of closeness and companionship. So when done right, this type of mimicry is actually appealing to people and can help deepen relationships. And this can be done in person or in text. Now, there was a study about this conducted by Christopher Newport University that essentially boiled down to, hey, look at these 2 random text conversations from strangers you've never met. In which scenario does blue bubble seem more likable? And most people said scenario 2. Mimicking another person's style of communication breeds camaraderie, but it should be noted, this is not the same thing as a carbon copy. So in summary, you will seem more likable not if you completely copy someone else, but if you match the vibe. Now, I'm sure we've all had a lot of fun discussing our favorite little text message pictures, but the jokes are over now. It's time to get serious. Now, as we previously discussed, emojis are in their own way a sort of language. And what's the most enjoyable part of learning a new language? Memorizing an exhaustive list of grammar rules. Emojis have a loose and sort of unspoken set of rules, so allow me to clearly define them based on nothing but my own preferences and taste. Emojis belong at the end of messages. None of this at the beginning or scattered within the message malarkey. This lacks synergy. This lacks class. Only 3 emojis per message. If you need more than that, you're not doing it right. Go back to the drawing board and think out of the box, because this is not the move. This is not the way. If an emoji does not add to the emotion of the message, it doesn't make it funnier, it doesn't help it to be better understood, then cut it. It's annoying and a waste of space. I know it to be true, and I think you know it to be true as well. You cannot use the same emoji back to back over and over again. This lacks creativity and shows overdependence. You're better than this. This should not be your one go-to, have a few in your arsenal and use them sparingly. All of this can be summed up with the following principle. Emojis are like seasoning in food. Use none and you'll be boring and bland. Use too many and you'll be overpowering and annoying. But if you find the sweet spot with just the right amount, it will be perfection. Do with that information what you will. But why all the rules? Shouldn't we be able to use them however we want? They're just little pictures. No! Haven't you been listening to anything we've been talking about? You know, maybe you can argue that's how emoji started, but as it stands, emoji are their own secondary language, so to speak. They can't stand as a language on their own like hieroglyphics, but they definitely are some way of communicating with other people. And like any form of written communication, its rules don't always have to make sense to be accepted and understood. For example, which one of these is angry? And why? Why are periods an indicator of anger or upsetness? Why does proper sentence structures look weird in text messages? Why does one of these messages denote sarcasm and annoyance while the other one denotes good vibes and happy times? The world may never know. Communication is complicated, and you could give yourself a headache trying to standardize and rationalize every agreed upon part of it. Instead of doing that, just go with the flow. Stop using 4 emojis in a row and join the rest of us who are in the 21st century. Emojis, like any language, can change meaning over time, meaning that terms that once had one connotation can today have a completely different one. I find this disaccord easiest spotted among different generations. Case in point, the thumbs up emoji. Thumbs up in the real world means nice, good job, I agree, something along those lines, and it can mean that in text messages, or the exact opposite. What's interesting is that the thumbs up would seem counterintuitive to be used in this message, but really it adds to the emotions of the message, that emotion being sarcasm. Now this is expert level usage, but an older generation does not understand such nuances. It's the same how when they announce something sad to the family group chat, in the worst way possible. Yes, grandma needing surgery is a sad thing, but if you convey that information like this, I will giggle, and that's your fault. The sheer number of emojis that we now have and the growing number of them that we get each year is both a cause for joy and for caution, because we now have more options to convey our emotions, but we also have more ways to lead to misunderstandings. For example, these texts have slightly different meanings. How so? I can't fully explain. It's so slight that if I actually tried to articulate why they're different, it would just come across as nitpicky and redundant. But if you use these emojis frequently, then you understand that these are very slightly different. Sure, at their core, they mean I'm playfully saying that I can understand the embarrassment of what you just said. But past that, what do they imply? Is this a forced laughter, or do you find this genuinely hilarious? Are you laughing with me or at me? Do you find this relatable, or do you think I'm dumb? Do you even like me? Like, this is stupid, right? And it's not that deep. Really, it shouldn't be. But if you're an overthinker or an overanalyzer, you get very anxious or you're very self-conscious, then these are probably thoughts that you've had before. How can this be solved? The solution is try your best not to read into things too much and tread carefully when you text others. That's it. Be wise. Be smart. Now, it would seem that all objections to the use of emojis stem from 3 camps. They're either too feminine, too lazy, or too casual. Now, believe it or not, but there is more than one Reddit thread in existence arguing whether or not men should use emojis in text conversations. That's pretty stupid. I feel like there are better ways people can be using time, but sure, let's analyze that. And look, we're not even talking about a heart emoji or flower emojis. We're talking like basic, like laughing and thumbs up, I think, even. Now, if I understand correctly, the issue stems from the fact that emojis, as we discussed previously, are all about expressing emotion. And also, they're very cute. And in what could be its own video topic, keeping up this facade of the manly man 24/7 with no room for error is a way of life that does not allow for such things. They're cute and they express emotion? That's 3 strikes right there. Look, I'm not gonna say that you should or shouldn't use them. Do what you want. It's not that serious, but I will say that if you don't use them because you're afraid to express emotion or you're afraid of how it would look to others, I think it's too menial for that to be a logical argument. Like, if you think people's respect for you hinges on such a small thing, either they have a serious problem or you have a serious problem with yourself. I don't think this isn't important at all. Like, seriously, dude, if you want to use a thumbs up emoji, nobody should be having a problem with that. Now, in addition to this, there's also an argument to be made that people rely on emojis too much because they're simply not skilled enough to paint pictures with their words. Now, as I discussed earlier, I wrote this video for the past 2 weeks. There are a lot of nights that I stayed up late writing it, so I'm going to read a line from the script verbatim that made sense in the moment, but I'm having trouble perfectly interpreting right now. So again, my whole point was people think that using emojis is too lazy, and the next sentence was, Shakespeare didn't need heart emojis and emojis of women doctors to write Hamlet, so why do you need them when kindly explaining that Dr. Susanna Jacobs couldn't get your grandmother's heart to start beating again? Oh. A Reddit user had this to say on the matter. Using emojis instead of words may indicate that you either don't know how or can't be bothered to formulate great sentences. Hogwash! I think that argument is both irrelevant and misses the point. Because this isn't an issue of small vocabulary, you're not considering the context in which we're living in. Do you sound like a thesaurus on a daily basis? No, then why should your text messages? Should they not be a reflection of how you would be saying these words in person? To try and paint pictures with words is beautiful in books and poetry, but when I'm just like talking to you casually while doing something else, I don't want to read that. It's pompous and annoying. There is no better way to convey emotions in a brief and concise manner than the modern emoji. And that kind of bleeds into the last argument, that emojis are too casual. That's correct. I'd agree with that statement. Yeah, what's the problem with that? Texts are casual. That's not 90% of my texts are casual. If it's serious, if there's something serious, call me. Talk to me in person. Don't send it if you can do otherwise. For the most part, texts are for fun and casual conversations, and I think that it's perfectly acceptable for messages to reflect that. We're chilling here. We're cool. I don't want to read eloquent and heartfelt stories in my iMessage. I just want funny and brief and like clever emoji combos. Those are always fun. I like seeing that. So what have we learned here today? That people don't know how to shut up. That is to say, people love communication. And as complicated as it can be, amongst the chaos and confusion, there is often beauty in companionship. So may the emoji live on in our screens and in our world. This has been a very stupid video about emojis. Good night, America. And also the other countries that watch me, I'm still getting used to that. There are like people in Germany watching me right now. Guten Tag.